What's going on, everybody? I'm Brandon from Walker's Woodworks. Welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I'm going to show you how I took our old gross bathroom mirror and turned it into something a little bit nicer. Stay tuned, I'll show you how I did it. This mirror was in the house when I bought it. It's pretty old and I figured it was time to update it to match the rest of the bathroom. The first thing I had to do was figure out what size I had to make the new frame. I tore the backing off and measured the dimensions of the mirror so I knew how large to make the new one. The mirror itself was 28 inches by 20 inches, but I wanted to leave a little bit of room for error, so I decided to make the space where the mirror would sit an 1/8 inch larger overall. The frame itself will be 3 inches wide, so I made sure to get some stock that was over 6 inches wide, that way I could get 2 strips out of each piece. I cut the pieces to length at the miter saw. Once I had everything cut to length, I set my table saw fence to 3 inches and then ripped all the pieces down to final size. Then I had to swap my regular blade out for a dado stack. This will allow me to cut the 3/8 inch rabbet for the mirror to set in. The saw stop requires a separate cartridge to use the dado stack, so that has to be changed out, as well as the throat plate. I set up the dado stack to cut 3/8 inch rabbets. Once I had everything tightened down, I checked the clearance for the saw stop cartridge, and then I was ready to go. Once everything was installed, I set my depth with a ruler and then ran all the pieces through to create the recess for the mirror and backing. I set my miter saw to 45 degrees so I could cut all the miters for the corners. I cut a little further away than I needed to at first, and then I could sneak up on the final cut. After I had all the miters cut, I laid everything out on my bench to get kind of an idea of what it would look like. For this frame, I'm going to be using dominoes, but you could use this same process with dowels. I marked where I wanted the dominoes to be, making sure not to get too close to the corner, leaving enough room for the domino or dowel to be installed without protruding out the other side. I also marked them so I could keep track of which piece went where. I grabbed the domino and changed out the bit to the correct one for the size dominoes I was going to be using. I know this tool is expensive and I had to save up for it for a long time, but I will say that it's paid for itself many times over already. I'm not sponsored by Festool or anything, but this is one tool I would recommend to any serious woodworker. It's basically the same operation as a biscuit joiner, just line up the line with your marks and cut the slot. I always try to do a dry fit before any glue up just to make sure everything's fitting correctly, because if it's not, now would be the time to make the changes. Once I knew everything was good to go, I could move on to the glue up. When putting it in the clamps, I really tried to make sure that the frame stayed flat and square before tightening them. After allowing the glue to dry, I removed the frame from the clamps. Then I took my orbital sander and flushed up all the joints and finish sanded all the faces and edges. After sanding, I grabbed my palm router and a small roundover bit just to go over all the corners to make sure they weren't so sharp. I'll link to this bit and all the other tools and stuff I use in the video in the description below for you guys, as I always do. I also hand sanded pretty much everything just to make sure everything was nice and smooth. As always, I brand all my work. I will leave a link to Gearhart Industry in the description below for you guys, as well as a 10% off coupon code if you want to get a brand of your own. As far as the finish on this, you guys know I love Rubio. It's an oil and wax blend, but this time I used some tinted stuff, so it pretty much stains, seals, and finishes all in one step. It's pretty convenient. Then I had to get the backer and mirror out of the old frame, so I just bent all the old staples out of the way and pulled them out. I was surprised to see on this mirror it actually had a date on the back, and it was from 1973. Pretty old, but it's cool that I could restore it. Or I guess I should say repurpose it? Reuse it? I don't know. Anyway, once I had it removed, I placed it in the new frame, and I got some foam core to use as the backing from some friends that do framing, and they also loaned me this tool, which is to press in the finishing nails that I use to hold the mirror in place. Not sure what it's called, but I'll try to find one or something similar and link it for you guys. It worked awesome. You just put the nail inside of the tool and then push it in, and then I just tapped them down a little bit to make sure everything was tight. Some people like to use wire to hang pictures and mirrors, but I prefer these sawtooth hangers. I made sure to get ones that I can use number 6 3/4 inch wood screws with, that way there's plenty of strength. I also drive them in by hand just to make sure they don't strip. I had a hole in the sheetrock from the old mirror, so I patched it real quick with some wall repair. This stuff has some fiber in it, so you don't actually have to use mesh or tape or anything, and it dries really fast. After that was all done, I measured where I wanted the mirror to be. Unfortunately, it didn't land on studs, so I had to use some drywall anchors, but these type will hold up to 75 pounds and were plenty strong enough for the mirror. This project was fairly simple and could be easily done in a weekend. It really helped tie in the mirror with the rest of the bathroom and the other shelves and things that I've made. If you guys enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys on the next one.